My name is Jessie Pauline Collins, and I live in the Detroit area within the Fermi 2 evacuation zone. I've been closely following the Fukushima Mark I reactor disaster for almost 3 years now. Fermi 2 is the largest Mark I reactor in the world, and it has accumulated a lot of deadly waste in its years of operation. And without any plan for the waste, removing the waste, Detroit Edison seeks a license for another reactor, Fermi 3. We already have too many reactors and radioactive dumps at every operating reactor in the country. More than that, if a truck driver told me the truth when he said he had hauled radioactive waste and dumped it in the former Cold War missile silos and dumped it. But this hearing here tonight is about sorting out the laws and or making new laws. I hope it's also about protecting the future, making good on the NRC logo that states they are protecting the people and the environment. I have lived through the Fermi 1 meltdown, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and now Fukushima, which is not over yet. And so I try to educate myself on the dangers of living near a possible Fukushima-type accident. I say try because most of the information I review is labeled proprietary and not available for me to review. I certainly hope all you officials have full review of documents, proprietary or not. For example, let me refer to the Fermi 2 NRC Integrated Inspection Report dated October 22nd, 2013. It states, selected cards were reviewed. At first I thought how appropriate since they're gambling with our lives. But then I found out cards stood for Condition Assessment Resolution Document. One card Fermi received was for foundation damage below several radial beams. The report goes on to say proprietary information was examined during this inspection, but is not discussed in this report. Endangerment to the bioregion is proprietary. Shouldn't foundation damage below several radial beams be made public knowledge? Damage to Fermi 2's foundation is a danger to our lives. The same inspection report vaguely discussed and approved problems associated with the radioactive waste, but they were properly addressed for resolution in the corrective actions. What problems associated with the waste? More proprietary dangers? And isn't NRC oversight of these facilities a bit too lenient? For example, in March 2012, NRC issued an order to require Edison to have a reliable indication of the water level in the spent fuel pool. A year later, Detroit Edison responded saying that they would do that by the fall of 2012.
And Jessie, could I get you to wrap it up?
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
wind it up. However, the officials gathered here tonight have come to hear our input, so I'm giving mine. I defer to my esteemed colleagues' impeccable research while I just rely on my common sense. Each reactor continues to endanger an entire bioregion. In our modern world, nuclear-produced electricity is totally unnecessary, other than to extract the plutonium for powering nuclear triggers, which I'm told need to be pepped up each year. I urge the officials here to uphold the law, not to renew any existing license, and not to license any new reactors, and shut down all operating reactors for the sake of humanity. We have passed through the deadly nuclear age and found it wanting.
I didn't prepare any remarks tonight, and I find this whole process to be extremely demoralizing and futile. I've been through it many times on the protesting side or on the conciliatory, just testifying without making a ruckus sort of thing. I think the whole this whole process is a sham and a fraud, as Mike Keegan stated. It's quite clear that we're at this point again because there is no solution to disposing or maintaining nuclear waste safely for an eternity, and it's absurd to think so. So we can say over and over again, as the public does, that we need to stop producing it, we need to stop relicensing nuclear power plants, and we need to shut down the existing ones now, and that's what people say over and over and over again. Like a broken record to the NRC, the vast majority of the public over and over again at these meetings says the same thing. And here we have, I think over here there's a small group of young, indoctrinated future nuclear industry practitioners. I see you, how you doing? I can spot you every time. You all look similar and dress similar and have the same smiley little faces and nodding your heads nervously when we address the issues that you seem so gullibly in tune, paid for by the Nuclear Energy Institute to indoctrinate a future generation of automatons to march forward. Nuclear power is the solution to global warming and all this other BS put forward. So we have this menage a trois, I like to call it, between the nuclear industry, the nuclear regulatory community, and our sad and pathetic politicians. We have a couple represented here tonight. Bob Latta's representative here tonight. Wow, there's a real politician to be proud of. And then our Ottawa County Commissioner who talks about Big Brother overlooking Davis-Besse as they were doing when a hole in the reactor had happened, eh? Really looking over their shoulder well, weren't they? Give me a break, buddy. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and breaking the record again. Wonderful.
Good evening. My name is Keith Gunter, and I'm co-chair with Alliance to Halt Fermi 3, a new network of concerned citizens and 15 Southeast Michigan organizations who feel that a third Fermi reactor is a gamble we can't afford. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I find that it is truly the irony of ironies that this meeting is being held, this Nuclear Waste Confidence meeting is being held on the 71st anniversary of the first fission chain reaction induced by humankind on the planet. I would like to take note that $500 billion or more of U.S. taxpayer subsidy has helped to create a nuclear industry, a fantasy world where nuclear power is too cheap to meter, where nuclear accidents are literally impossible, and where nuclear waste is not only not a problem, but is considered a resource and an inexhaustible source for future power. How can we be confident when we have these myths on one hand, and on the other hand, we have a reality where we have 70,000 tons of the most radioactive material on the planet that already exists in temporary storage with no permanent repository in sight, and with 56 years of commercial nuclear electricity generation already passed. The fact is that reactor site fuel pools, dry cast storage, interim away from reactor storage facilities are nothing more than a radioactive shell game designed to manage the thinnest membrane of time that these wastes will be radioactive compared with the longevity of our human-created institutions and technological creations. In the past 56 years, the U.S. government, the nuclear industry, and the world scientific establishment has examined every possible disposal option imaginable, including deep geologic disposal in salt, shale, volcanic tuff, crystalline granite, and even possibly in Antarctica. Seabed disposal has been discussed and rejected. Outer space disposal was discussed until January the 28th, 1986, when Space Shuttle Challenger blew up over Florida and all such ridiculous conversation came to a halt. I say to you tonight that after over a half century, we, the public, have seen too much to be fooled any longer. Fukushima Daiichi epitomizes the hazards of GE Mark I irradiated fuel storage, and any loss of on-site and off-site power could lead to a very bad day. You don't need a earthquake or a tsunami. In closing, I will say this. We are long past due in banishing, somehow, some way, the nuclear power fantasy to the dustbin of history in favor of truly clean, renewable, and affordable forms of power. And that finally placing human health and public safety above the interests and profits of gigantic corporations, the time has come.
Thank you.
I've lived in Michigan most of my life, and I can remember times when I was a child. I'd go swimming in Lake Michigan. I'd drink the water. It didn't taste like chemicals. It tasted like tap water. It was pure. And there weren't very many people living on the lake at that time, and there were no nuclear reactors. And we were never afraid of the water. But now, I don't like to swim in Lake Michigan. It doesn't taste the same. Get rashes. And you think about, well, they just had a spill, 91 gallons of radioactive waste went into the lake from Palisades. You know, and there's leaking tritium. And we have tremendous problems right now with nuclear waste. Do I have confidence? No, I have no confidence. Because the nuclear waste we have right now is not being handled properly. At Palisades, there's a cask that's got a bad weld. I've been at meetings in the past, like many others. I said, well, why don't you take the nuclear waste out of this cask with the bad weld, which could deteriorate and break and leak and contaminate the lake. Why don't you take the fuel rods out of it and put it in a good cask, you know, and monitor it? Well, instead, they've kind of like put casks up around it to kind of buffer it. And they say it's too dangerous. We can't take those rods out. Well, come to find out, it's never been done. Those casks were not licensed when they were loaded. And the company got away with that. I mean, do you put a car on the road that might be dangerous, thanks for the 1 minute, and just run it down and see if it blows up? Or if your engine blows 300 feet out ahead or whatever. No, you don't do that. They don't let anybody do that. But the NRC has let the nuclear industry get away with a lot. And part of it is in the storage of nuclear waste. It's just not safe right now. And I can't see it being safe in the future. We have a problem with Canada. This is a big, huge nuclear waste depository where they're going to bury it near Lake Huron, seal it up in an underground chamber. There is just some really ridiculous answers to what to do with nuclear waste, and I don't think anybody's got a solution yet. I think the best answer is to keep working on solutions, but stop making it. Thank you.